Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome back once again to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley, ready to talk some more baseball with you. And the craziest thing about it all, in what is potentially the slowest offseason of all time, well, we might have actually had a move today. We're going to get to that. We're going to be talking about news and noise, getting you caught up on everything that's happening around the MLB right now. We're going to dive into that rumor mill. Why? We need to be talking about everything we're hearing. When things are moving this slow, things aren't really picking up, traction's not really happening, we have to pay attention to all of the information we're getting from whether players, agents, teams, all over the place. We're going to take a look at some top trade candidates. I really want to dive into this because with free agency moving so slow, keeps coming back to this, there's a lot of names that are going to be available via trades, and it might be more realistic at this time. We'll talk about some of those coming up. And as well, we're going to look at MLB.com's first official power rankings and give some of our thoughts on that. But we're going to start things off with breaking news. Yes, happening just as we're recording. So by the time you hear this tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit dated. But as of right now, Robbie Grossman is finalizing a 2-year, $10 million deal with the Detroit Tigers. Outfielder for the Oakland A's. He's coming off some of his best years, and in 2020, batted around 241, 8 home runs across 192 plate appearances for the AL West champion Oakland A's. He's been very good at getting on base. That's kind of been his thing. It's not one of the bigger names. Obviously, there's a lot out there that we are going to find a lot more interesting, going to be paying attention to, but this still helps out. It's going to be someone who is going to be starting on a major league roster next year, most likely, probably going to be a left fielder, and it starts putting a little more clarification into maybe what some future contracts are going to look like. There's a lot of guys out there looking for big money. Grossman signing for 2 years, $10 million. This isn't surprising in the sense that it's a short contract. We are seeing a lot of people looking maybe for more years. Don't be surprised if we see a lot of shorter deals happening. So have to start there. Why? Because that news had just been reported, just coming out. And quality move. I think the Tigers are making a good decision there, trying to fortify their outfield while still looking to the future. 2-year contract doesn't wrap them up into anything big. And we're going to transition to some fun news, some stuff that I really like to see. I've been reading this story kind of a lot today. The Boston Red Sox have decided to hire Bianca Smith, the first black woman to coach professional baseball. This was announced on Monday. She is just 29 years old, as she is going to be a part of the Red Sox minor league system, becoming, like we said, first black woman to coach in professional baseball. We just had recently had some coaches start in Major League Baseball. I know we had one of the Giants organization. We also saw the Marlins hire the first female general manager this offseason. So there's been a lot going on with that. And Smith, she's got a fun resume working behind her. She's been working as an assistant coach and hitting coordinator at Carroll University. That's in Wisconsin, so close to my back door a little bit, familiar with the school. With the Red Sox, she will be based on team player development, having to deal with working with a lot of the mechanics, still a lot of hitting fundamentals. She seems like someone that's been involved with that a lot at Carroll University, so getting an opportunity in the minor league system, we'll see where she grows from there. She seemed very excited. Obviously, getting to work in the MLB is big for anybody. She recently was on the MLB Network in an interview. She said, the opportunity is amazing, still wrapping my head around it. Probably won't really have it sink in until she's actually there. Been the director of baseball operations at Case Western University from 2013 to 2017. Assistant coach at the University of Dallas in 2018. Had internships with the Rangers and the Reds. She's been around baseball, okay? This is similar to what we were talking about the Marlins with their GM position. These hires are not just happening for publicity stunts, okay? These are legitimate. They have the background. They have the ability to be great to help a program, a team, a minor system, whatever you want to look at it. It's just a really cool move. Props to the Red Sox for making it happen. You want to get the best people in the door, all right? If you want to have a successful organization, you want to get the best possible people, and it should not matter who that is. Are you going to help our franchise take a step forward? Are we going to develop better in the minors because of it? And it looks like the Red Sox are feeling pretty confident about that, so good for them. Moving on to potentially another free agent that could be signing in the near future, Corey Kluber, two-time Cy Young Award winner. Still out there and available? Well, that's because he's had a little bit of an injury history. It is looking like Kluber is scheduled to throw a bullpen session for interested teams in the near future. Now, 34 years old, right-hander, spent half of his offseason kind of preparing for this so far. It's only going to be 30 pitches on January 13th is the plan right now in Florida. Was a dominant pitcher in the past. Kluber was a very big name with the Cleveland Indians from 2014 to 2018, posting great ERA, winning a lot of games, doing a lot. He was a big start to the Indians' dominant pitching performance that we are very familiar with up to this time. Fractured bones in his right arm in a comeback in May of 2019. Strained his oblique when he tried to return in August. Texas Rangers traded for him then afterwards and watched him suffer a big-time season-ending injury right after that. And so the Rangers really didn't get anything. They ultimately decided we're going to decline his option. We're not going to pay him. So Kluber is looking to pick up some sort of contract, go somewhere, and be a part of a team in the MLB. 34 years old, it's possible, okay? These pitchers can last longer than a lot of position players, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it cannot happen. But this injury history is very questionable. Very questionable. So it makes you concerned to commit any type of long-term contract, big-time money. It's going to be a prove-it deal. And it's going to come down to the situation that Kluber feels the most comfortable and wants to be there. We've heard, the Red Sox are a familiar name that we're hearing because also he has what sounds like a house in Boston, so close to some proximity where he is comfortable with. So we would not be necessarily surprised if that happens, but I would imagine there's going to be quite a few teams interested, at least showing up to see what he looks like. 30 pitches, this isn't a simulated game. It's going to be hard to get a great feel out of this. But regardless, his chance to prove himself, we've seen a few of these. We really have, and I really think that we're going to see a lot more of these, at least in the near future, because we have a lot of pitchers that are questionable. The free agent market isn't overly deep, but that doesn't mean that it isn't possible for one of these guys to just jump in and show, hey, I have a little bit of talent here still in my arm. I can do this. I know that I talked about it before. It was something that like Tim Lincecum did recently, and I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign just yet because of just where we are in baseball. So all in all, we'll see what happens with Kluber. Anything goes. Somebody's going to be happy maybe just to get him in the door to try things out. Phil Hughes, I love this story. This is funny to me, has retired from baseball. If you haven't heard from Phil Hughes in a while, there's a reason to that. The guy hasn't thrown a pitch in 2 seasons. 34-year-old right-hander on Twitter on Sunday said that he is announcing his retirement, and he said, well, it's been pretty apparent these last couple of years. ups and downs over 12 years. Very happy that he was able to be a part of the league. If you remember him, World Series champion with the Yankees in 2009, 88 and 79 with a 4.52 ERA and 211 starts, 79 relief appearances over 12 major league seasons. He was with the Yankees, the Twins, and the Padres. All-Star in 2010, career best 18 and 8 then. Just a guy who's been around. He's a veteran. Maybe he's not a Hall of Famer in any way, shape, or form, but he's a guy who's been around. He's done a lot of things, and he's just finally decided to call it quits. I like the idea of it, just like I waited 2 years. Now I'm retiring. If you guys didn't know, I'm getting my name back out there. But I just like to fairly apparent this is happening. Good sense of humor with it. So that's something cool that you like to see. And then got to end things off with just a little bit of sad news when it comes around the MLB, as Sandra Scully, the wife of Dodgers legend Vin Scully, passes away at 76. Hall of Fame broadcaster Vin Scully, he's been around baseball a long time, so you hate to see it. It's been probably a really great year for the Scully family. Happy to see what the Dodgers were able to do, able to finally get that World Series that they have been chasing for quite some time since their last appearance. They lived a great life with the Dodgers organization in Los Angeles. Vin Scully, 93 years old. We heard from the Dodgers CEO, Stan Kasten. Vin's biggest fan, was always there and loving support of him at Dodger Stadium until she began her battle with ALS. Vin and Scully's family rock, and they will be dearly missed. Just a sad loss, so you got to send your thoughts and prayers out with Vin Scully. You never want to talk about this stuff. You really don't. It's not a great deal of fun, but you also do want to pay your respects whenever you have that opportunity to do so. I wanted to make sure to at least bring it up, talk about it briefly. So that's going to be it for news and noise. Get you caught up for all those teams around the league. Getting you caught up in all those major points. And in a slow off season, there's only so much to talk about. And if there's one thing that is very popular to talk about, well, we're going to be moving on to that rumor mill, getting you caught up on everything that we are hearing when it comes to our biggest names and players in the MLB and where they potentially could be in the next season, coming up here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
So if there's anything we need to start paying more attention to as we get further and further, creeping closer to the MLB start, it has to be with these rumor mills. The information is going to continue to come in, and I'm really excited about the move that Grossman is signing. I mean, it feels odd to say breaking news, Robbie Grossman. We have so many big names that we are waiting for, but we just have no clue truly what the market is, what teams want to spend, what players are asking for. A lot of this noise is coming from both sides just because they're trying to get things done. And outside of a guy like Trevor Bauer, who's pretty much basically throwing his own information out there, it's hard to find what to believe. So we're going to continue to dive into what we're seeing because there's information coming from everywhere. And we're going to start things off with the Boston Red Sox. We've talked about quite a bit today, but they also are a team that's just kind of in on a lot of players. We don't know if there's a strong interest in the sense of who they truly want, but they're putting their name in a lot of hats just to kind of build their team up. And one that we have been seeing recently, early as today, is the Red Sox have serious interest, it looks like, in free agent starting pitcher Jake Odorizzi. And this came from a source at MLB.com. And that's Mark Feisen. And the Red Sox have serious interest, and this is coming from Boston Chief Baseball Officer Jane Bloom, who was a part of the Rays front office when they acquired Odorizzi in 2012. There's familiarity there. So they think that there's a connection, and that's why the Red Sox are getting involved on this one. And it's just another player in that tier below Trevor Bauer and probably below Sugano at this point. I don't know if I would put him necessarily right at third, but when he is healthy, he might be the better option over Tanaka and Paxton when it comes to top free agent pitchers available. Only 30 years old. I know people start to worry once you get over that hump of 30 in baseball. I know that's the number that just scares people. The thing that scares me more is the injuries that he's had, especially in 2020, having issues when it came to a strain. Then he had some chest issues with his right middle finger. He had some blister problems. Only 4 starts for the Twins. And he's a good guy to put in the middle of your rotation when healthy. He was an all-star in 2019. Went 15-7, 3.51 ERA, and 30 starts for Minnesota. If he gets back to that healthy stretch where he's going to start a lot of games for you and just be steady, he's not like he's a big strikeout guy. He had 178 strikeouts in 159 innings. But it's going to be enough. And the Red Sox need help at the pitching position just as much as any team possibly could. So with some connections in the front office and Odorizzi there, that is where this noise is coming from, where the Red Sox believe there is a connection there. Already talked about Corey Kluber too, and that's another guy. The Red Sox are among one of the teams that have been showing interest. There will be more involved with, more with Kluber. So, again, they're tossing their name in a lot of hats, seeing what they can pull out for pitchers. They need to figure out that position. Another position that is just getting more and more interesting as we move along is the Dodgers at third base. Now, there's a lot that could happen here. Earlier in the offseason, we talked about they would like to give a call to the Rockies and say, hey, Nolan Arenado, can we make this happen? But that's taking on a lot of money. So it seems like they're falling back to the options of Justin Turner. Familiar face, but it seems like at the moment, the Dodgers and Turner are a bit off when it comes to the total amount of years. There was a report as recent that said Turner is looking at almost a 4-year contract if he can get it. That would put him up to 40 years old in the MLB. And that's, in this time frame, it's scary to give anyone a 4-year contract, let alone a guy who's going to be 40 at the end of it. So the Dodgers are also looking at DJ LeMahieu. They could go out, they can make this signing. If there's a team that can do it, it is the Dodgers. But if we've learned anything, it's really wait-and-see mode with LeMahieu. If the Yankees are not being over-aggressive with a guy that it feels like they can't afford to lose, it doesn't seem like the Dodgers are going to be the team that is going to go over the top as well. But they are interested. To go with a few other names, the trade market. With free agency not really going that quickly, we're hearing more potential trade targets. Chris Bryant, Eugenio Suarez, so a couple guys from the NL Central potentially being some names. Now, it seems like the Dodgers would prefer to re-sign Turner. But like we said, Turner's seeking a 4-year deal. Dodgers really only want to give him a 2-year deal. So will they meet in the middle? Will they bring that down? That's going to be the biggest question to getting things done. If that common ground is not going to happen, that's when the push is going to be for other players. That's why the noise is coming out about Bryant and Suarez. And there's other names out there. There's other people they could go after. Kyle Seager from the Mariners would be something. Put the Seager brothers together. That one would be interesting. But right now, it seems like they are focusing on Turner. If they can swing LeMahieu, fine. But the other names just kind of seem like, hey, we're floating that out there. There's options. But we're not necessarily chasing them at the moment. We're just, we're keeping our door open. We're keeping the window open. We're looking. We're seeing. We're looking at the menu. What other options are out there? But if we're going to stay in the division, one team that's been making a lot of moves, those Padres, man, they are looking at the future. Looking ahead along with the now. Because when they're looking ahead, as I talked about in my last podcast, they did not ruin any chances to re-signing Fernando Tatis to a major deal that he eventually is going to get. They've been called the winners of this offseason so far, obviously for big reasons. Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, Ha-Seong Kim, great moves. But signing Tatis to an extension would be the big thing. And it seems like those discussions have started. And this is something that we are getting the feel from general manager A.J. Preller himself. He wants to get it done. Okay? He told the MLB Network Radio, we wanted to focus during the beginning part of the offseason on improving our ball club. Check, done that. And then get to the new year and start to dig in on the Tatis situation. The only situation there is extension. So those talks, I don't believe it's going to get done before the start of the season. Let's just be real. But we're going to probably hear maybe some numbers, some years thrown out there, what each camp is kind of hoping for. This could take time. And the Padres have time. They have arbitration coming up. They will be able to slow play this if they want. They're not going to be in any rush. But I am curious to see what comes out of this. Can a team truly afford to pay two guys like max 10-year salaries? And there's no max in baseball, let's just be real. But can you afford to pay Machado and Tatis that $30 million plus range? There's a reason they're going all in right now, okay? Because they know once they have those contracts in the books, things could get interesting. And, we're going to talk about big-time shortstops. We might as well talk about Trevor Story and Francisco Lindor, okay? We're not going to sit here and pretend like we don't know the Lindor story. He's going to get traded most likely before the start of the year. I don't need to dive into that one any more than I have already. But as someone that was calling for the Rockies to start the rebuild, seeing the Cleveland situation, Trevor Story could be on the move as well. Trade rumors are starting to float around a little bit, and others are getting on the train that I was jumped on a little while ago. It's time for the Rockies to rebuild. And now that the Padres went kind of all in on their team right now, it looks like it makes even more sense. Okay? Get the return you possibly can for Story. The return for Arenado might be tough now, especially when you look at the trades that have been made with Snell and Darvish. But get what you can. If you're getting out of the contract, that's kind of a win as well. If you don't have to pay max money. And also, what can you get for Charlie Blackmon? You got players out there you can move. They should be looking into this market, and we're starting to see it. This is coming even from Buster Olney. All right, he's talking about this as well. There's going to be potential trade partners, and there might be something to it to beat the Indians to the punch on a trade, whether it be with one of those big-time franchises like the Mets, Yankees, and Red Sox who can afford it, or a team that we've been hearing about like the Blue Jays or the Rangers who want to start fresh. Okay, getting your deal done now so you don't look like the loser deal later. Because I can see this happening. Once Lindor gets traded or once Story gets traded, that's going to be the base that we're going to be looking at for the next deal. Hey, we want to get that. Sorry, we're not going to give it because that's where all of the discussions will start. So I like the idea of where that one is going. Switching gears a little bit, let's go to the bullpen, everybody's favorite positions, right? It's been pretty quiet outside of Liam Hendricks about bullpen moves. But we're starting to get a little bit of noise around Alex Colomé, who, I'm on record saying this, he's a great closer. He does the job. He gets in, he converts. He scares me as a guy who doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. But it seems like there are some teams that are starting to show some interest in a solid back-end bullpen arm. The Astros, the Nationals, the Red Sox, And even the White Sox, so a possible return here, remember, that's his team in 2020, have shown interest. I think a lot of these closers are going to still be waiting to see what Hendricks gets. It's going to be hard for these guys to jump ahead of him. They probably want to see, well, what's the top end guy going to get? And we need to go from there. And Hendricks might be doing a little bit of the same. He wants to see what these other guys do sign for so he can go, hey, I'm better than them. I deserve more. So it's a real game of chicken right now until an offer is truly out there. But Collin, like we said, last year, not a single home run allowed, 22 1/3 innings, 0.81 ERA. If you're a guy closing the game for me, that's pretty good. 12 of 13 on his save opportunities. Solid play. Solid play. And when it comes to a great pitcher, well, they aren't quite the same without a great catcher, are they? And that's when we're starting to hear some noise around Wilson Contreras for the Chicago Cubs. Now, with the Cubs situation, they could go a lot of different ways. We've already seen it. Darvish is gone. Didn't keep Schwarber. They're breaking things down at the moment. The next guy that could be on the move out, well, Wilson Contreras. He's someone we're going to talk about a little bit later on the podcast as well. But the Philadelphia Phillies, who would love to re-sign JT Realmuto, are starting to look at a backup plan. And this is nothing new. They were also looking for a backup plan before McCann signed with the Mets. And if Realmuto realistically does not happen, well, a team that's been selling as of recent in the Cubs could be the one to make a move here. And it seems like the Cubs are potentially shopping Contreras, who has a little bit of interest to him when you consider he has another year of control after this one. But realistically, the Phillies, they want Realmuto. Better player, better bat, better defense. He's a great player. Okay, he is the best catcher in baseball. We're not going to go crazy. Is he a little overhyped? Maybe. But when you are as good as he is, like a five-tool player almost behind the plate, we just don't see that in baseball right now. So that's why he is getting a lot of interest, and he's someone that the Phillies are really kind of waiting on before they make any crazy moves. And that bothers me a little bit when your biggest move was a guy just in your front office instead of the players you're actually signing. But I digress. I want to go back to the Red Sox for one more thing. Jackie Bradley Jr. seems to be still in talks with Boston. And I find this interesting because Boston, who did sign Hunter Renfroe to a one-year deal, $3.1 million, not much. This is a see what he is type of deal. I thought that might be the end for Jackie Bradley Jr. But it seems like Boston's chief baseball officer, Shane Bloom, is still in contact with Bradley Jr. And if that's the case, any type of deal gets very interesting with the team and their thoughts and hopes with Andrew Benintendi. Verdugo is going to be out in that outfield. Okay, he's going to be there. Renfroe was going to be a guy that can be solid defensively, and he has some potential on offense. It wasn't his best season last year, let's be real, we know it. But he has some potential. Bradley Jr. is coming off of his best offensive season in quite some time. He is still a very plus defender. You don't really go in on him, I don't think, on a cheap deal. I don't think he's going to settle for a cheap deal. He's going to go somewhere where he's going to get the most he can, as he is 30 years old. So, something to keep an eye on. I find that interesting. And it wouldn't be the rumor mill if we don't end things off with Trevor Bauer. And, man, he just likes to add fuel to the fire. He's a smart man. He knows what he's doing. He had talked about how he wanted 1-year deal to maximize his value. Now there's talks of 5-year, 6-year deals where he's getting major money. And then to put, the cherry on top with everything he's doing, he makes these own little videos and he releases them of him on a little road trip from San Diego. He's driving around in California saying, oh, it's beautiful, it's relaxed, it's great here. Sending that tease that, oh, I could be in San Diego for sure. No problem. Guys knows what he's doing. Also been reported that he's got a meeting with the Blue Jays. scheduled. He's letting everyone know what's happening. He's no fool. And if there's a team that's desperate to get him, which I'm getting the feel there's a team that's desperate to get him, he's just floating out there that, oh yeah, I would love to be here. Oh yeah, I'm meeting with this team. He's trying to drive his price up. Like, let's not be foolish. And he's durable. He's a great pitcher. He won a Cy Young last year. He was a big reason for a team to even make the playoffs. What he's deserving of, hey, that's up to the team what they want to spend. But it seems like he is kind of loving the free agent life. At least that's the early feel right now. Guy's smart. He's doing a great job. He's putting it all together. So that's going to be it for the Rumor Mill on this episode. Getting you caught up on what we're hearing, what's the noise out there. When we come back, we're going to talk about who are some top trade candidates in the MLB. If we're going to talk about free agents, we got to talk about all these trade guys coming up here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Now, when it comes to the art of the transaction, there are the two big ways to do things, right? There is the free agent who is offered up to go wherever in the world they please for the money that they're hoping for. Anything great, of course. And then there is the wonderful art of the trade, where we make the swap of what we think is fair to move a guy. It might not be fair, too. I shouldn't get all into that. But the trade is the one that's a little more exciting, right? And with the way this offseason's been going, and with what we've recently seen, these free agents ain't signing too quick. Sorry, it's not happening. But trades, those can still happen. And San Diego has shown that. Deals for Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, people are loving their offseason right now. And realistically, what they gave up, nothing. Absolutely nothing. You can hate Darvish and Snell for their contracts, for their health issues. I get it. I understand everything you're telling me. But they basically gave up nothing. And so it makes you get a little excited about other potential trade targets. And so I want to talk about some guys that are going to be out there, going to be available at specific positions, working our way through who are going to be the guys that are of most interest. Now, some of these players may not necessarily be available easily, or we're not hearing their name a ton, but that doesn't mean they can't be had. And I think these are potential names that for sure can be had. And we already talked about one a little bit. Wilson Contreras for the Cubs. He has been in trade talks for a while now. This isn't the first time this has happened. And he's not going to be a free agent until 2022. We brought that up. He is different from all those Chicago pieces. Schwarber gone, Darvish gone. But Bryant, Baez, and Rizzo, where they're free agents next year. I think it's a big, big move if we see that Contreras gets traded. I think it's done then for the Cubs. I think it's a teardown. They might ride out those three players, but the odds of them coming back probably are not too good. But he is a potential catcher that gets people excited. There's offensive pop there from time to time. And also defensively, he can do a lot of great things behind the plate. He is not Real Muto, but he is a step below that gives you some solid production. and a guy that you would love to have on your team. Don't get me wrong. And it's hard to tell how much is really out there. Catcher is a valuable position. So that's a possibility right there with Contreras. I could definitely see him on the move. First base, now there's a lot of first basemen that I think would get interesting as a position that wasn't a great deal of talent in free agency. I would have had Josh Bell here. That was the name that I had been watching, waiting to see what team was going to pounce, and the Nationals got a steal there. So that one is gone. That one's taken. So I'm going to look at a team that I thought was a little more interesting in this free agency. With all the moves that the Padres just made, I think that the Giants are going to be holding off on any free agency. We had seen them connected to some big names. We saw that they were lingering, where there was potential there. But it seems like the Giants might now be a year away from shedding a lot of money off their payroll. So therefore, why not Brandon Belt? Now, this is someone that is a pretty big price, but he's still going to be an attractive piece for DH or first base. Batted .309 last year in the 2020 season. Looked pretty solid. So look for maybe the Giants to try to shed some salary here and go all in next year to try to compete a little bit more. Second base, this one's tough because if there actually was a position that is interesting in the sense of a little bit of depth in free agency, it had to be second baseman. Starling Castro could be on the move. I think he should stay. I think he should get another year with the Nationals, see if he can bounce back because injuries kind of ultimately did him in last year. But he could be moved. Shortstop, I could sit here and we could go over this for a while. Francisco Lindor is the big name. He will be on the move. If you want to get a top-end guy, there it is. You go for Lindor. But don't count out the other shortstops. I'm not counting out Trevor Story just yet. I'm not counting out Javier Baez. I don't think there's any way that Correa and Seager are in on this. Those are most likely guys they want. The Astros want Correa back. The Dodgers want Seager back. But Francisco Lindor, Trevor Story, and Javier Baez, I feel like are all attainable. And there's an interesting dynamic when it comes to the free agent shortstops right now. Didi Gregorius, Marcus Semien, and Andrelton Simmons were the big names in this free agent market. And with all the big names coming next year, there might be some value in trying to grab one of these guys now and sign him. Trying to do what the Dodgers did with Mookie Betts. Yes, we know he's going to be a free agent, but we're making this trade to show him we want you here. We're going to offer you the big deal. We're going to get the extension done. That trade is possible. Very possible. And Lindor just wants his extension. He's been very clear. He was asked during the season about the Indians and, hey, is it possible to get you to return here? Lindor flat out said, oh yeah, Cleveland's got money. They can pay me. It's possible. He's going to be on the move. He's going to be in a good situation. Story is right there with him. Baez needs a bounce back. If I'm the Cubs, I'm a little scared in selling him low. I'd like to see him look pretty good in the year, but you also lose value if he's only going to be half a season and then be a free agent at the end. But you really don't make that trade unless you are on the verge of contending or you think he's going to stay regardless. So a lot could happen there. Third base, Nolan Arenado. We've covered this one to a great extent as well. This is a hard trade to make. A very hard trade to make. He signed a big-time extension with the Rockies, making it look like I wanted to be there. But the Rockies just are not the team to contend right now. It makes no sense, none whatsoever, for him to be there when they are at best, at absolute best, going to be third place in their division. And even then, I'm not guaranteeing any wild card spot. It doesn't make sense. A team should be jumping in. Now, Arenado has a no-trade clause. has the ability to opt out of his contract after this next season. So not only does that make it a little scary for him to be a flight risk, but it also makes him a little scary in the sense of, do I really want to pay this whole thing? Do I want to restructure? There's a lot going on there, but I think it's smart for the Rockies to do it. There's not a lot of trade talk there right now, but he is going to be one that heats up the closer we get to spring training and heats up in the season because the Rockies are not contending. Sorry. It's not happening. Outfielders, it's a mix of bad contract we shouldn't have signed, good contract, but we'll see what happens, and a guy that we just need to see in a different location. So I'm going to start with Joey Gallo, okay? The Rangers have moved on from Lance Lynn. Finally moved him on. Thank you for that trade. Joey Gallo was supposed to be the guy. 40-plus home run seasons, back-to-back years, 2017, 2018. All-Star in 2019 before an injury. 2020 did not look good for him. But if he has a strong return, I don't see the Rangers keeping him. I don't think he's in their timetable, their schedule right now to contend. But he could be on somebody else's, and you could get some sort of return from him. They're not going to be in it 2021. They're not going to be in it 2022. That means trading him makes the most sense. And he's a free agent at the end of 2022. Don't make mistakes without trading these guys at their highest peak value. That's the thing the Rangers have been struggling with. They want to compete, but they're not maximizing the value of these guys. That's a problem. Guy that did maximize his value a couple of years ago with the Chicago Cubs when he was a midseason acquisition, Nick Castellanos for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, they made the postseason last year. All right. Trevor Bauer's most likely going to be gone. Tough. They also traded away a couple players. Cincinnati's roster does not look as good as it did last year. And they spent a lot of money to show we want to compete. We want to be all in. Want and what you have are two different things. And 3 years, $48 million left for Castellanos. May not be in their future. Now, the Reds could surprise us and be that mystery team that goes in to try and get Lindor or Story or any of those guys and say, no, we truly want to compete, but this is a contract that I really think the Reds will try to move. And he had an okay 2020 season. He came out hot. He looked great. He was hitting home runs, getting on base, doing a lot of great things for the Reds. But he really fell off. Really fell off. And that's what makes this signing a little problematic. I think there's a chance he's going to be more available as we get into the season as well. And that's what a lot of these guys are. There's just a lot of confusion with it. But if he was traded before spring training, wouldn't be shocked. And then the last outfielder, I don't want to do this to the Marlins, but they're going to have to look at Starling Marte. I don't know if last year was a fluke or not. I don't know if I necessarily believe that they're going to be back. And if that's the case, his contract is really nice to move and will get you a return just because he's cheap. I think the Phillies are going to bounce back next year. They're just not going to blow that many games. If they do, man, I feel for you Phillies fans. I really do. But the Braves are the top notch. I think the Phillies will be better. I think the Mets will be better. I think if the Nationals are healthy, they're going to be more interesting too. NL East is tough. It's very tough. And the Marlins just aren't there yet. You've got a lot of great young players that are exciting, but you're not there yet. We're getting closer. Starting pitchers, let's just talk pitchers. I'm going back to the Reds. Sonny Gray, I think, is the guy that gets moved. I think the Reds are closer to a rebuild than they are contention. I hate to say it. And when that's the case, you're similar then to Lance Lynn for me. Cash in while you can. Trade him on a high value. There is a lot of teams that would love to have a top-end starter. And Sonny Gray looked to be that. You remember those glory days when it was Bauer and Gray fighting for that Cy Young? It was those two. They were the names. Move Sonny Gray while you can. There's also been noise around Luis Castillo, but I don't know if you necessarily want to move on from him just yet. A little more contract control there. I would keep that one. But if they move both, won't be surprised. Won't be surprised at all. And then the big name, people around me, they hate me saying it. But with each passing year, Josh Hader being traded seems more and more realistic. All right, Liam Hendricks, Alex Colome. Those are the big-time free agents right now. They want a payday. Big payday. Teams may not want to give them that payday. So how do you control that? Well, how about we trade for a reliever that has probably been the best reliever since 2018. Was reliever of the year in the National League in 2018, 2019. He's going to be 27 in April, so still young. He's in his second year of 4 arbitration-eligible years. And on top of that, the Brewers kind of have another really good reliever in Devin Williams, who is just the top reliever in the National League as a rookie, right behind him. So they don't need Hader. He's going to be cheap for a team. And eventually he's going to price his way out of Milwaukee. I think that's going to happen. Sorry. I don't see them paying big money for Christian Yelich and Josh Hader. That's just not the way that Milwaukee's going to operate. They are in a lower pay scale. So it just seems inevitable. It's going to happen. And realistically, the Brewers, who have a pretty poor farm system, they should be looking for any type of return they can get anyways. So that's just some names. Those are the ones. There's a lot of people that can be traded. A lot. I think this offseason is starting to gain a little steam. These trades were great things to get things going. We just saw a signing when it comes to Robbie Grossman. Hopefully this is the beginning steps, and we're starting to slowly work our way towards some names tumbling. Fingers crossed, still hopeful. So we're going to take one last quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about and look into MLB.com's first power rankings of the season. Give some of my thoughts here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
So when they have the way too early yada 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 articles, we see that in every sports. Way too early mock draft, way too early playoff prediction, way too early power rankings. And I'm sorry that I have to say this way too early, but that's just legitimately what this is. It's the first power rankings though of 2021, and that's the thing that gets a little exciting. We're talking about teams where they are at the new year. And we would be hopeful that we would know a lot more about these teams. At this point, considering the fact that we just don't have a great deal of free agent moves that have happened so far. But we have to start somewhere. And I think these are very easy right away. So I want to give some of my thoughts. First off, 1, 2, whatever order you want to put these in. And I don't feel comfortable in any way, shape, or form taking the Dodgers out of the top spot. Yeah, do we have a couple questions about their roster? Sure. But realistically, they're going to be a powerhouse. Pitching, hitting, everything. Back end of their bullpen might be the only thing I'm a little worried about with Kenley Jansen. But I got a feeling they're going to figure that out. And third base, they're going to put something together. Whether it's Turner, whether it's somebody else, realistically, the only thing that they are going to lose is Kiki Hernandez, and even if Turner is gone, they're gonna fill that gap with somebody at third base. So I can't take them out of the top spot. Sorry, they're holding on to that one. They are, as of right now, the best team going into next year. But The Padres moving up to 2 just feels so great. And I hate when this happens. Right now, on paper, it feels like the best 2 teams are both in the National League. And we're going to have to see one go to a World Series. Now, thankfully, baseball can get very crazy, and we can see, underdog teams get hot at the right time, get some great pitching performances, and, dethrone somebody or take somebody down in the postseason. But with what they have done this offseason, adding to their pitching, getting a little bit of depth on their team, they are just taking the next steps forward. I'm sure the Padres are hoping that with some tough contract times coming, maybe for the Dodgers, that they'll be able to overtake them and be the team of the NL West. But as of right now, tops of the division makes sense. After that, Yankees. They were a roller coaster last year, a major roller coaster, up and down health-wise. But if they are healthy, that offense is potentially the best offense in baseball. Starting pitching is going to be the factor to see how far they go. Garrett Cole's really good. He's really good. But who's going to be taking the mound in your second game of your series, the second day of the season? Who do you feel comfortable about? They got some names there, got some young guys they can throw out, but they just let Paxton go. Tanaka might be gone. Who are you sliding in there? I'm not the only one. That's the question. That's the questions in the Yankees organization. And then on top of that, if they lose DJ LeMahieu, I don't know if they're necessarily going to slide from 3 as of right now. It obviously matters a little bit where LeMahieu goes, but it's someone they can't afford to lose at this point. I don't think they can, because it just makes their team that much scarier. The Atlanta Braves at 4, I love this. That offense is dominant as well. They added to their starting rotation, not just in free agency, but also with health. Okay? Mike Soroka coming back is going to be huge. Charlie Morton being added to this team, huge. The Braves are going to be a team that everyone knows is going to be good. But we may not talk about them enough about winning a World Series, and that's a real shame. Those first 4, I'm not going to argue with at all. Hey, MLB.com, thumbs up to you. I think you did great. But your first mistake that I have here is putting the Twins at 5 ahead of the White Sox at 6. Now, let's give the Twins their due. Yes, you are the AL Central reigning champs. You overtook the White Sox going into the postseason. But we have some questions about your team. They might lose some starters in Jake Odorizzi, who, I know, health issues. Rich Hill. Trevor May's gone, went to the Mets. Tyler Clippard, Sergio Romo. Nelson Cruz. Eddie Rosario is gone. Cut him. You are losing a lot. While this White Sox team gained. Adam Eaton, Lance Lynn. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a team that goes and gets Nelson Cruz to fill that DH role. The White Sox got better. They took steps forward, while the Twins took some back. I would flip those two. I'm sorry. White Sox are 5 for me. 6 be the Twins. Then after that, 7 for the A's. Hey, makes sense. They got a lot of questions. That one can drop. They got a lot of guys they need to return. Obviously just lost Robbie Grossman. I'm not going to argue too much on that one. The Mets at 8 was surprising. You're expecting a bounce back, and I feel like you're expecting some sort of big signing to come their way. DeGrom, Stroman, fun. Syndergaard coming back at some point. Hey, okay, I like your starting rotation. There is talent on that offensive team. They need to have a bounce back. Hey, Pete Alonso, you need to be back to Rookie of the Year, Pete Alonso. We need to see that guy. But 8 just feels high. Feels very high. And then I like 9 and 10, Blue Jays and Rays. The Blue Jays are on the rise. The Rays took a little bit of a step back. But let's be honest about this, okay? The Blue Jays are a young team. There's probably hopes that they're going to sign somebody else. We hear that they've put offers out to teams, competitive offers out for players that are free agents right now, but nobody has signed on the dotted line. while the Rays have shipped out 2 top-end starters, at least 2 of their top 3 starters, in Snell and saying bye-bye to Charlie Morton. That's not something you just overcome. And this Rays team is deep, and they have a great farm system, and they're going to figure some things out. But there might be some bumps for them next year. And, the Rays starting at 10, all the way down to about roughly 20 in these rankings, I call it my land of confusion, giving my little shout-out to Genesis there. These could flip in any different direction. I could see these teams falling off the table. I could see these teams being highly competitive. The Rays being the first one, maybe those pitching losses won't matter that much. Maybe they'll call up some of their guys that are from that farm system, and they'll be great. But maybe then they'll struggle in their starting rotation. Maybe their bullpen takes a little bit of a hit. Maybe some of these guys in the farm aren't ready. That's a scary thing. The Indians sitting there at 11. I love your pitching, but is your offense even there? Are they there? You could fall off as well. Cardinals at 12, what have you done to better your team? Yadier Molina and Wainwright. You could lose both of your staples in this offseason. That's scary. Your offense wasn't that great to begin with outside of Paul Goldschmidt. Jack Flaherty had a very rough season. Now you're going to get a few people to return, but that could go a lot of different directions. The Astros, 13. I think they could have been higher in here just because of what we saw in the postseason. That looks more like the Astros, but they could lose some players here. They could be down some of their top-end guys. And at the same time, what we saw from Altuve, what we saw from Correa in stretches, what we saw from Bregman last year, are they taking some steps back? That's scary. Still in the Atlantic confusion. The Phillies at 14. Man, so much talent. Especially if Real Muto's back. There is so much talent on this team. It bothers me how many games they blew last year. I'm not a Phillies fan, but I just sit there and I get frustrated looking at them. The Cubs at 15, which way are they going? Do they want to compete or do they want to rebuild? Anybody know? If you do, let me know, because we're sitting here a little confused. Reds at 16, same boat. Are you competing or are you rebuilding? Nobody knows here. Marlins, great fun story. Awesome. Are they real? Oof, that could go a lot. I love their starters. I love their young youth. When it comes to starting pitchers, they have a couple position players starting to come. There's potential there, but do I buy it just yet? Who knows? The Brewers. Wow, what a fall off. Yelich, Hiera. Things need to be better there. They have some top-end talent. Corbin Burns could have won a Cy Young. Brandon Woodruff is a great player. Back in your bullpen with Josh Hader, Devin Williams, really good. But Yelich and Hiera need to be better. And also, that rest of that team, consistency from somewhere. The Angels at 19, this is another potential. Offensively, they could be so great. They can't get anybody out. We need to figure that out. And then the Giants at 20. I mean, seriously, look at that range. 10 to 20. All of these teams can go any different direction. It's like the Giants. Buster Posey's coming back. That might help things out. They were pretty competitive last year. Can they build off of that? All the way at 20 seems a little unfair because they almost snuck into the playoffs. It's a very interesting range. I've looked at power rankings all the time across sports. And usually, a lot of the times, it's like, yeah, that feels right. Yeah, that feels right. I don't remember a time me being so confused on where these teams falling and where they could be. There is so much. And for the voters that took part in this, it had to be tough filling this out. And once we get past 20, I mean, none of this is really bothering me. Mariners had a nice surge at the end of last year, but it's still going to be the youth coming up we need to pay attention to. Let's see if they're competitive again. The Nationals, I guess I could say, I have high hopes, and I don't know why. It's a gut feeling. It might be just my love for Trey Turner and Juan Soto and my hope that pitching staff is still really good. But when you take the time to look at the rest of their roster, you understand there's more here that we need to figure out. And the Josh Bell move was great. Love that too. But there's more there that they need to figure out. And so 22 for the Nationals is probably pretty fair. Red Sox at 23. Okay, great. Pitching. Let's figure it out. We'll climb after that. Tigers 24. We need to build. 25 Royals. And that hurts me because they're making signings trying to be competitive, trying to get players, but sorry. That's where you fall. And then Diamondbacks, Rockies, Rangers, Orioles, Pirates, just whatever. These teams, if you're a fan of them, hey, you're in the rebuild. All right? It's the future. Power rankings are not the articles for you right now. Don't be that guy to go read an article and go, you really put us at 28th? We should be like 22nd. Just, you guys, future. Build the farm. Get some players up. Develop. Go from there. Sorry. It's the hard thing to hear. But baseball is a game where if you have the right farm system, you can turn things around pretty quickly. So, fun to look at this. Overall, it's not the worst. It's not the worst I've ever seen. There's definitely things I want to turn around. I'm bothered. The only thing that truly bothers me is that Twins out of the White Sox. The Twins have so many question marks while the White Sox just better their team. I don't get that one. That one's not going to sit well with me, but hey, that's why everyone can have their own opinion on power rankings. So there's mine. So that's going to be it for this episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I want to thank you once again for listening, downloading. Your support means so much. It's great to have. If you have the opportunity, would love for you to leave a positive review, telling me something you liked about the show, maybe something you want to hear on the show in the future. Maybe you have some ideas on power rankings, some trade candidates, whatever it may be. Love to hear from you guys. Your support means so much. But I'm signing off. This is Collin Manley here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.